agenda is popping up. Okay, I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting for Tuesday, June 11th, 2019 to order. Roll call. Alder Galvin.
Here.
Alder Dorf here. Alder Corpus Dex.
Present.
Alder LaFave.
Here.
Everyone is here. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, a motion by Alder Galvin, second by Alder LaFave to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from May 8th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Alder Corpus Dex,
Second.
second by Alder Galvin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And regular business. Okay, I'm going to switch over to my packet now. And we have request approval to award a contract to Best Enterprises LLC for $26,379 for the demolition of a structure at 1286 East Mason Street. Staff. Rick.
We issued an RFQ for the inspections department. I think we had 6 or 7 properties. This was the only one that came in over $25,000. So the other properties didn't need to come before the committee. Best Enterprises is the low bidder at $26,379, and that's our recommended award.
Oh, okay. Are there any questions?
Yeah, what property is this? Is it that head shop that burned?
Yes.
Why are we tearing that down? Shouldn't the owner of the property be?
I'm going to defer to the department.
Bill Pappy, City of Green Bay, Community Economic Development Inspector. So this was started by a complaint. Owner of the property is Tim Verheyen. There was a significant fire on the second floor residential unit, which was a total loss, which caused damage on the first level. So we went through our normal inspection process, gave him orders, did not get any compliance. Property continued to further deteriorate because of the amount of weight that was from the fire that was on top. So went through that process with Mr. Verheyen. He did not comply, so we issued a razor repair order. He did not reply or file an injunction with that. Got an attorney involved with Rich Mason, our city attorney, into the process. He was saying that he could repair it, but there's so much damage that has occurred. He needs all new plumbing, all new electrical, all roofing. There's some structural issues now. It's to the point where the amount of repairs in this is much more too costly to fix. So we gave him an opportunity to remedy that has now passed. He says that he could tear it down. The problem is I did some asbestos testing, and there's a significant amount of asbestos in the structure. Mr. Verheyen had communicated to us that he does not plan to do anything with the asbestos. He doesn't plan to do anything with the large amount of concrete that needs to be removed as well. So it's a commercial property. There's a large section of concrete that's directly behind the structure that when we tear it down, all of that needs to come out. Mr. Verheyen also owns the parcel right next to it that is a large parking lot. We can't do anything about that because they're 2 separate parcels. So we communicated with Mr. Verheyen that he needs to remove the concrete that's on the parcel in question. He refuses to do so. So because of that, we won't issue him a permit in order to remove it himself. So he won't comply with our order. So we went through the bidding process with Rick and purchasing to remove the structure.
So does that become our property then? Is it condemned? And I mean, why would we do that?
Because it's a nuisance and
It's
it's
a
a blighted
nuisance? And then do we
structure.
own it?
No.
Wait,
The
we
property-
just do
the-
it, we just have
We
to,
charge.
yeah, do we bill him?
Yes, gets charged as a
Okay.
special assessment, and because
Got it.
the property is a significant commercial property,
Okay.
you know, he does not, as far as I know, he does not have any insurance on the property,
Wow.
which is why the situation that we're in with the fire. So there is a risk because we're tearing it down and we're, covering that, that cost, and then that cost gets sent to the, on his taxes and stuff, but because the property is a commercial property in a very high trafficked area, odds are he may just walk from it and then the county would get that property, but I would imagine at some point, Cheryl, we're going to rate from our departments here that would be a significant property of interest for
So you just said
developments.
the county would get the property?
Yep, if it
But
goes into tax.
do they have to pay then? Would they pay the $26,000?
The property,
I can help add a little bit on that. Like you mentioned special
Yeah.
assessments. So what happens if it becomes a raise order? It becomes a special assessment. So on this year's tax bill, this $26,000 will be added to that parcel's tax bill.
Got
So
that.
before, and when your tax payment is done, all special assessments are paid before the property taxes.
Right.
So if they do try to pay their bill next year, all dollars will be applied toward this special assessment first.
Right.
Your point is, if he decides not to pay his real estate taxes, roughly after 3 years, the county then potentially would take the property over.
This is the county.
Anything they could sell it for, they would take care of and pay of all of back taxes.
Got it.
And if there's any dollars left over after the sale, then they would also pay, then the city would get some of the special assessments back if there's
Okay.
left over after they did the sale.
So sometimes we just have to do things as a city. If it's a
Yes.
nuisance, if it's something dangerous, we just have to do it.
There's a chance that Mr. Verheen will tear down part of the structure. And in that instance, because he's got equipment there, he said, no, he's still just going to tear it down. If he does that, I'm going to talk to Rick, and I don't know if Best will adjust their bid or not. If by the time I get the contractor out there to remove it, if he has already removed part of the structure, I don't know what that's going to do to the bid.
Is it
So-
dangerous with the asbestos if he does remove it?
Well, he's gonna have to, there could be some fines with, the DNR and things like that, if he just goes about and does it on his own and then doesn't report that properly, so, there's a lot of moving pieces to it.
Are we going
Kathy?
to?
Okay,
Oh, Kathy
sorry.
was first.
I
Oh, I'm sorry.
started the whole thing and never got a chance to
Okay,
finish, but, all right, let's go.
Okay, Alder Galvin.
Go ahead, Kathy.
but, okay. No, I was just wondering, it seems like a low price unless it's so, the top part is down so much that there's not a lot for them to remove because of asbestos. Isn't that expensive?
The asbestos is separate. The majority of the cost, I think, is going to be in the amount of concrete and the amount of the tipping fees and the amount of labor it's going to take to be able to remove the structure. The structure is so close to the right-of-way that there's things of how they remove it,
Yeah,
that they
right.
need to be careful with not disturbing underpinning the concrete.
Yeah.
Steve could probably talk more about that. I don't want
Right,
to screw up
right,
Steve's
right.
right-of-way, so,
Yeah.
so there's some
Alder
So,
Galvin.
tricky
so
with
what,
that. so.
Alder
I'll
Galvin.
let Kathy finish.
Okay.
the asbestos though, this is part of the cost here? Or is
Yes.
that gonna be another cost?
No, that's a separate cost, it's all gets billed.
In
There's a,
this, in
there's
this
a,
cost, this whole total?
No.
no, not
it's
in the
not.
26.
Okay,
not
that's
in the
what I wanted to
26.
know.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
There's a-
We did a
Somebody may-
separate RFQ for asbestos abatement for all these properties,
Mhm.
and those contracts have been awarded. So the asbestos will be abated
Okay,
in the next couple of weeks.
okay, okay, thank you. Okay. I'm sorry.
Can we, should we take steps to prevent them from trying to remove the asbestos from that property? It's not gonna do it properly. Or do we let them just start doing the work and let the chips fall where they may?
I could try, I have the property secured, and I've been monitoring it.
Okay.
So the sooner the bid gets approved, the sooner I can get Best out there to, because this is the only one that they're gonna have with this run. I have another contractor. So, but, I just wanted to communicate to you guys that there is a risk that, as Diane spelled out, that, if he walks from it, but I feel comfortable that it's a commercial property that's
Right.
a large development happening right across the street, that I
Good
think
location.
it's a good location.
We have to do the right thing for the community, but my dealings with the county in the past has been that when the property sits and the taxes aren't paid, and I've seen properties sit for as long as 8 years where taxes were not collected. And when the city attempted to take possession of that, they were told that the county would get first dibs, and then when the taxes are doled out, there's a pecking order.
Mhm.
And the city ends up kind of low on that pecking order, so we may not even get our tax money out of that, much less the special assessment. On another note, isn't Mr. Verheen one of our better-known landlords?
We've had some incidents with Mr. Verheen, yes.
And he doesn't normally pay his citations?
I would
Well,
have,
maybe we're
Possibly.
getting,
Well,
going
what
down the
I guess
little
what I'm
track
getting at here
Yeah,
is,
it's not a-
has he been cited at all for anything yet on this property, or are we gonna do
not
just
for,
special
not for this one, it
assessments
would just, in my professional opinion, that would just be a waste of time.
to cite him,
Yeah,
because he doesn't pay it?
yeah, it's just gonna, all that's gonna do is just tie up our municipal court and our city attorney and things like that. That's not gonna have the necessary effect.
But then, are we documented? I guess my concern is, moving forward, we've had problems with certain landlords within this community, and he's skating on this one again,
Mhm.
at the cost of the taxpayers, and yet we allow him to continue to have rental property that
Mhm.
continues to cost the city and the taxpayers money,
Mhm.
okay? And as this continues and goes on and on, he makes money, we lose money. And at some point, either special assessments or the inspection fees or citations, and even putting them in jail costs the taxpayers' money. But something has to be done with individuals like this that do nothing but tear our community down and cost the taxpayers money. And this is another perfect example of it.
Yeah. And in my opinion, we're giving him a $26,000 citation that if he doesn't take care of it, he doesn't pay it, he's losing his property, and then we get somebody in there that's gonna improve the city of Green Bay, not hurt it, so.
Kathy?
What would you say, once it's cleared near the property, because this is commercial, what would do you have a price that you know that it could be sold for?
I don't.
I'm saying, maybe the county would get a nice chunk of money for this property that we would get our,
Just never know.
Yeah.
Because this is a low price, I would think, for that piece of property.
Well, that's only, remember now, that's one thing.
Right.
And then there's other things that
Right.
we need to do.
If
that
we-
maybe
Yeah.
would get.
If we don't do anything, there's gonna be more costs in services
Right,
that,
sure.
police, fire, inspections,
Right.
that are gonna be having to be going over there and dealing with things, and, potentially a structure that is, we're gonna have, code violations where half gets done, half doesn't, and it's
Right.
not a safe structure. it's a
I
blight
agree,
structure.
we have to do it, because he's shown, he has a track record, he won't do it, or he won't.
It's
do it.
unfortunate
I would
that-
entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Alder Galvin,
Second.
second by Alder LaFave. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2, request by Alder Galvin that IT study the ongoing issues with the Civic Clerk Program and report on the fixes for it. Here we have Employee of the Year. Come on up.
Not anymore, I guess.
Oh, it's a new year, new
I was just
employee.
gonna say, Mike did put in quite a bit of information and
Yes.
backup.
He did.
information. Do
He
you
put
have
a lot
any
in it,
additional
yeah.
questions for him
Do
based
you have
on?
additional questions?
No, it's just, Mike, it's frustrating, and I understand sometimes it's operator error, and you said that you've been working with the alders that have issues, and you're working with the staff, so that they're more at ease with addressing the problems that don't always come up, and that, obviously the mayor's brand new, so. But I guess, this last one, especially where we had an alder trying to use the fact that it wasn't working correctly to abstain for,
Yeah.
50 or 60, 70% of the voting that day?
Oh, one could read their things prior to.
Right, well, I'm certainly, yes, but I'm just saying that, these are the things that, and this is supposed to make it faster, better, easier, and so I get frustrated when this stuff doesn't work. And so I just wanted to make sure that we're on it, and that we're gonna see less and less problems going forward.
When-
Alder LaFave.
Okay, there are times when it will not say leave these committee meetings.
She might have already
Sometimes-
exited you out of the
Exited
meeting
me
before
out,
that, so
okay.
then,
But
yeah.
I
Sometimes
always
that
push,
happens.
where I'm supposed to log out. I
Mhm.
always log out and turn it off, like,
Sure.
told me to turn it off every
Yeah.
day.
We got to
So-
reboot our computers periodically, clear the history out of your browsers, things like that, just little maintenance helps, goes a long way.
Keeps things faster too, that way.
Hmm.
Well, thank you for your comprehensive
Yeah, yeah,
answers.
that was-
You did a
yeah,
really
yeah,
good job
read it all.
writing them out.
Yes,
Motion
yeah.
to receive and place in file.
Okay.
Second.
Second
Thank you.
by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I also want to say Mike has been very helpful. I've had a lot of issues and he's really been very helpful.
Is
Yes.
very great.
Yes, he is.
All right, number 3. For consideration and possible action on the 5-year combined capital improvement plan in 2019 bonding. Whoa, staff. This one should take a
All right,
little
yes,
while.
we gave you a lot of information.
Yeah.
Of our last meeting, we had talked about just the framework of how many dollars had been requested. And through some recommendation from our financial advisor, they said that for the general levy, to try to keep your mill rate at a somewhat level mill rate or slightly increased, we should try to bring the recommended general levy borrowing down to about 8 million. And what you're seeing is for the next 5 years, we have anywhere from 9 to about $10.5 million is what the general levy borrowing is. So that is one portion of the request. Then you also have all the other funding sources that also have requests in this packet.
Could we go over how this is laid out? 'Cause
Absolutely.
There's good.
Yep.
There's so much.
Yeah.
Yep, and again, okay, yep. When we had pulled this together, we actually used another municipality's format. And so we have either major projects, we have equipment, and then we have fleet. So what you're seeing is a very summarized page on top. And
Okay.
then behind it, you have a packet that is really your major projects, then you have a packet that's your equipment, and then you have your packet that is fleet. And
Where's the
then
part where you say it's limited to 8 to 10,000 or 10 million?
Oh, on the very first, this was what we had discussed.
Where it says general levy impact, that part?
Yep, on the very bottom, correct.
Okay,
So
that's
currently for
what it is.
2019, the
Got
reason
it.
why that's the only portion that affects constituents' taxes, their tax bill. All the other requests for 2019, where it says $13,304,000 of borrowing, $13,304,000, that has 100% other funding sources. That does not affect your tax bill. So it does affect our overall bonding and borrowing, outstanding borrowing, but it does not affect the tax bill.
So when we're looking at what we might have to reduce, we're looking at the difference between 9,313,000,
To roughly
into
8
8
million.
million. So
Correct.
that is what we have to focus on.
Correct. If you wanted to look at the other
Okay.
funding sources, you can, but again, those departments are fully paying 100% of all their borrowing
Oh,
costs.
okay.
That would be your sanitary, your storm, your sewer, your parking, possibly Bay Beach or TIFs. They are paying for those expenses, and it does not go on a tax bill.
Okay, so that first page, that is the most important part.
That's a summary portion,
Summary.
correct, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Continue.
And again, I'm not sure exactly where you all you want to take this information today. Last meeting we had was, we gave it at a very high level, summarized level, and at that point, you had no detail by departments. So the request was, what if people requested it? So now we have gotten down to a lower level, still summarized, some of the pages behind are still very summarized, especially when you got to the fleet. But I guess what I'm looking for is recommendation is, what additional information are you looking for to help make some decisions, maybe to get us down to that 8 million? Are you looking for, useful life? Are you looking for which departments are on track for, or are on track for the replacement schedule, and which departments are far behind on replacement schedules, that they are not replacing them as, according to the normal schedule? Are you looking for needs versus wants? But I guess that's, everybody has their own opinion on that. But a lot of detail here, wondering what else information you want to help take this to the next level of potentially still borrowing for 2019 for needs, becoming part of the 2020 budget and 20 borrowing as we are getting close to budget time.
Right. Well, so some of the information I'm wondering with fleet,
Yes.
or any equipment. There's a lot of stuff that's listed as being worn out, it's old, it's not repairable anymore. I know that the PD, they auction off the squads, they get very little for them, but there is money generated from all those old pieces of equipment, even if we're selling it for scrap. Does that money, where does that bundle of money end up?
Okay, the majority of the capital equipment that is purchased for the general levy, it goes into one of our 400 accounts. So police or fire, when they borrow the money, when they ask for their request for fleet replacement equipment, it goes into a fund. And in many cases, not that they always want that, but we'll ask what their trade-in salvage value is. So if they're asking for a vehicle that's maybe $28,000 or $30,000, many cases we'll say, oh, what's your salvage value? And then we'll make them reduce their bonding request by that.
Okay.
But it all goes in the same fund. So when they do we just had an auction, when the dollars do come back in, it goes back into that same fund. So they have a 400 fund or capital equipment fund.
So it's used to offset that.
It's offset. So if they have money left in that fund balance, they can just use that money then toward additional equipment, maybe reduce their bonding for the next year, if they didn't take that into consideration when they originally borrowed. Some of the smaller squads, we don't always ask them for trade-in value, but on some of your larger pieces with equipment, when we know there's going to be a sizable trade-in, we'll make them reduce their bonding up front with an estimate of trade-in. But it all goes through the same fund, so everything they borrow goes in that fund. Any revenues that they get come in goes in that fund, and all expenditures then go out of that.
And is that reflected here?
By
And I know it's hard to
fleet.
do, I mean, you can only guesstimate what you're
Right.
gonna get at auction or.
Our fleet is at a very high level yet in this document. I'd have to go by each line. Some departments put their salvage value and some do not. So we could get to a lower level and make sure that we have the salvage value.
Well, shouldn't there be a policy, if this document is gonna be functional and usable and understandable for the alders who, let's face it, we don't have the financial background that you do with this stuff, shouldn't there be a policy that every department has to do that reduction estimate what they're gonna get and then take it out of that?
It's gonna be a large estimation, because right now, if they're asking to replace it in 2020, but they don't actually can replace it by 2022, it becomes 2 years older, and, then the value will go down.
absolutely.
But yeah, it certainly would be an estimate, and we certainly can make that a requirement, that the salvage value is an estimate and reduction in their borrowing request.
And I guess if we're looking to hit this $8 million thing, I guess the best thing to do would be to ask the department heads to break down their request into must-have, would really like to have, and I guess if I don't need it, I can put it off for a while. And I understand when things are broken down, you can't repair them anymore. You can't repair it. I mean, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. But, obviously, look, first year, $9,300,000.
We have to, 1.3 million, we got.
Right,
figure it
so,
out.
and I don't want to leave it up to us. I mean, we have some understanding, but I hate that when we do that at budget time, and we just kind of haphazardly, and almost sometimes it seems like there's some kind of an agenda other than just saving money when some of these cuts are made. I would prefer that the department heads try to do that.
Okay.
Spread it out more, if there's a way of doing that, or to find different ways or different kinds of equipment they could buy. Maybe it's not as cool, or neat as, I mean, and just let's say PD, Ford Explorers, I don't know what they cost, but is there something out there that's less expensive that can do the job as well as? I mean, things like that.
And so there are some items, of course, if and when we can get our budget in a slightly better state, there might be some of this equipment or some of the fleet that potentially years down the line
Right.
can start going back into the operational and not into the long-term borrowing.
And that's what I
Yes.
think that's ridiculous and I hope we're not doing that anymore, taking out a loan for like vehicles and that have, what, a 3 or 5
They
years?
are, they're in
That's
there.
in there.
We're still doing that.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
And how many years is that loan for, to take out a loan for a vehicle?
Right now, we are currently borrowing, it's a 10-year 10-year note on equipment.
You see, and I have a very hard, I don't think there's anybody in the United States who would take out a 10-year loan to buy a car.
Yep, that-
It makes no
It's-
sense.
But we
equipment
got
that-
ourselves into that.
Right, the
right,
equipment started
unfortunate
moving
position.
into the borrowing.
But this is the idea of getting us down
That's
to
how we're
8
trying,
million.
we're trying to get out of it,
Trying to
right?
get out,
We're trying to get out of
But
it.
it's gonna be a gradual process because we're
Right.
so
Right, and this is why
far
this
the
is
other
spelled out
way.
here in this 5-year plan, that
Right. Right.
eventually we
See
can
what we
get to
can.
that point.
And you're right, I like Alder Gelman saying that we need the departments to know what is your top thing that you really, really need, and then work it down and see what we can do, because, we don't want to have, like the ambulance, like last year, I mean, that was terrible, but then we didn't have for the police, because we were trying to find something for that. So we have to know what is your main thing that you really, really need. We gotta do that first. That's gotta be in our budget. And then we work our way down,
So everything in here is things that are asking to be bonded for, other than, if it came from another source, not that stuff. but-
Correct, everything that was
but-
in here was exactly how the department heads had submitted it. There's been no changes to the requests
And so we're over by 1.3 million.
of where we were recommending, because that will still take our mill rate up for the debt portion of the 2020 budget.
Or over 2.5 million the next year, 2.6 the next year.
Yeah, so, okay, so there's the debt ratio. Is that as high as we can be?
It is not.
I
It is
mean, so where did that number come from? Why did we just pick
The
that?
8 million?
Why did we just pick the 8 million?
Because currently, right now, we're currently paying about, this is equalized level, but we are paying about $1.48 of your $9.16 toward debt.
Okay,
This change, even at 8 million, because we're only paying off about 7 million in general levy, you're borrowing 8 million, and then it continues to compile, or, stack at top of each other. That will take your $1.48 up to about $1.55. You are going to add 7 cents in even 2020 budget by borrowing up to $8 million. And then the year after, if you go up to 8 million, that's going to take your mill rate up from 148 to 155, up to about 164.
okay, but just one second. If you look at the chart, if we borrow the whole 9.3, it goes from 1.55 to 1.58. That's 3 cents.
No,
No, sorry,
That's
look
it.
at the, right before this is current mill rate is 148.
148, so it's gonna go up 10 cents.
It's gonna go up 10 cents on the.
Right, right. I mean, but the difference between funding almost everything and funding 8
Is about
is
3,
3
4 cents, yes,
cents.
correct. But it still is 10 cents over your current mill rate. Last year, we took a 14 cents mill rate increase. Most of it, in this case, would be driven by debt.
So this mill rate increase, there will be other areas. We also need to increase
All
the
your
budget, right?
salaries, and if you wanna
Everything
put
else.
any,
So this isn't the end of it.
This is one small
just
piece of
one
your
small
budget.
piece. So
Correct.
we're trying to be fiscally responsible and keep it to maybe about 7 cents
Something,
more.
correct. And again, as you continue to borrow, so if next year you borrow 9.3 instead of 8, you're going up 1.3. The year after, if you go up to 10.5 from 8, now you have the extra money you borrowed in 19, and then you have the extra money that you borrowed in 20 that continues to take your mill rate up.
I don't see how this is gonna ever work. I mean, so they take out some things this year, but then they'll break maybe by the next year. But I mean, I guess, I know we can't fund everything. This just seems like it's out of
Well, this is the
control.
same challenge that we have every year,
Yes, it
right?
is.
And that's why things didn't go into the operational budget, and then it went into a bonding request.
Listen, I like how it's laid out. I mean, it sure makes it easier to understand.
And the idea too is as we continue to develop and increase taxes, the property value increases, but as we increase and develop more taxable property, that the
We
hope
have that
is,
more of a
That would
base.
help.
right,
You have a bigger base
Bigger
that you're
base.
allocating
Right,
the
that
same
you're
dollars
taking.
over,
So
so then
you
your
would-
mill rate comes down.
And we might not have to borrow that much in the future.
Correct,
I mean,
this
even
is-
though right now it looks like we'd have to borrow that much, we might have
if we
it
can,
other ways.
right, if we can somehow generate money, so some of this, like vehicles and that are bonded for. It
So
becomes-
when is the next TIF coming due, where we would be getting? That's not for a while, right?
So, we are expecting to open a new TIF yet later this year.
Oh.
When they close.
No, I meant close, because that's when we get the money.
Close. Don't go with that. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
it's
no.
different, but yeah, it's
Um,
close.
There's none that are up to their termination date. However, we're looking to potentially close some ones early. But we have a few that are negative TIDs that we
That
would
you
probably
want.
be, do a
So
positive and
it
a
takes
negative to do
a-
more of an offset in the first
So we
year.
can't really count on that right now.
Not at this point. We would
Okay.
be a few years out before you would start seeing some positive assessed value added back to your general levy.
I know what I want to ask. Isn't there something where if you don't borrow a certain amount, or is it just the whole taxes, where you get money, you can use money,
You can make up levy, you didn't
make a
raise it.
levy
The levy.
limit or something?
Right, you have, your levy limit allows you to, it allows you to take your mill rate up a certain percentage based on your net new construction.
But
That-
there's money you're supposed to be able to get from past years if you don't do a certain thing?
Correct, we do have that capacity. Last year, our limit was exactly the 14 cents we took up. We were basically maxed out our levy limits. Our levy limit, without taking the additional, allowed us to go up 14 cents. Yes, it does allow us to take up our levy limit, based on the calculation I showed you earlier from our financial advisor. We can take it up higher. But remember, we did increase our mill rate by that 1.5% or 14 cents last year. We do have the capacity to take it higher. But, you know,
And that's not even still what I'm talking about. I guess I'm not being real clear. There's something where you get to use an unused portion if you don't.
Right,
It
you
just
borrow-
allows you to take your mill rate up, your total
Oh, that's all
borrowing.
it allows you to
And all
do?
it does is, because
Oh,
it just
okay.
wants to make sure that you're not
Maybe I was misunderstanding.
overcharging or having this huge increase in your taxes one year over another to your
Okay.
constituents. This just gives you a limit. So yes, that does allow you to use some previous unused levy limits.
That's
but it-
what I'm talking
But
about,
it just,
previous
but only,
unused levy
it just
limits.
allows you to take up your mill rate a little bit higher.
Got
But
it.
again, you still have to, as a council, decide that that's how much do you want to allow
it up.
everybody's tax bill to
But
go
is there
up.
a limit on bonding that we have to stay under in order to do that?
Yeah. Wasn't
No.
there?
No.
I thought
I
No,
thought there was
there
something.
was, and that was, there were a couple of options within your, yes, now I know what you're talking about.
Good.
There's a couple different options within your levy limit worksheet that says that if you have your outstanding debt at the end of 1 year versus the year before.
Yes.
If it is lower,
Right.
you are allowed to use a portion of unused levy limit. We would not qualify for that.
would not.
But
Okay.
there is another portion that our financials had come back and said that there is a provision or an allowance for debt. it was on that one long spreadsheet that we showed you 2 meetings ago. And they had said that we have a capacity of using unused levy limits, using a different allowance, not the one that we had talked about, of
Okay.
total outstanding being lower this year at the end of the year than the previous.
So when do we need to do our bonding? I mean, we're late already, right?
We are late, later than normal, correct?
So we have to decide on getting this down to 8 million by what day? Today? We don't have time.
You know, all the departments that have any requests in 2019, they're holding off at this point, other than we do have an exception. You know,
I'm spending.
Yeah, with the exception of the DPW, who got approval to move forward with their pavement, sanitary, and storm, and we also move forward with the elevators. So that is a large chunk of the dollars that are within the 2019, that by exception, they have moved forward. But any other equipment and fleet that is within the 2019, they have not spent those dollars. Some of the equipment have long lead times, so even if we get approval at the end of this year, that equipment won't be here till potentially next year anyways.
That's the problem with our bonding. Comes ahead of the budget. And so we kind of get the cart in front of the horse. And we should have been having these discussions months ago. But it's always been this last minute, put out the fire, let's do it now real quick, and you
No
have
matter
no
when we have it, it
options.
would be before the budget.
Well, we would like to make this document as part of the budget process.
I
Right.
see.
So as we work on the 20 budget this year, you're gonna also know what you would wanna borrow for the 2020 budget, for 2020 borrowing. And if there's anything in your 2020 borrowing that you can move into your 20 budget, you would know that.
Right.
Or if that would allow you, and by the time you're done with your budget at the end of this year, you would already basically have approved what they're going to borrow in 2020,
I
which
see. So
allows
we
the
should have
January,
it.
February
Yeah.
process.
Right.
And then your departments can start
But
moving
now we can
forward.
have it moving forward. I just still am concerned about all the cuts that it looks like we have to make when these are things that obviously they didn't put them in there for bad reasons. So we really have to think about every single request, I believe, and go through every single request. So we need to have like a kind of a long meeting at some point, would you say? Kind of like a
Yep, if
budget
you would like,
meeting?
then at that point, you would have, I mean, you can ask any of the department heads
Right.
now something, questions, or that would
I
be
don't have
a meeting
questions
that we
now.
could schedule really to go through all the details and the line items that are within this packet.
Yeah, it would not be good to do it tonight because I haven't had,
And they're
you're
not
giving us an
prepared.
explanation and that's not fair.
You've
Well,
you've
that
also
and all
already
there's
come
a
back
lot
and
of
you've
time.
already asked us to, I'm sorry.
No.
You've also asked us to come back with a little more additional information, like do we include salvage values in the fleet? And that's something we can update before then. If you've asked the department heads to help prioritize it. Some of the backup sheets had priorities, not sure they were all filled in, so we could ask them to do the more of the priority items that you have talked about. You asked about if there's anything that they could potentially find a cheaper or a reduced cost option, and if there was an alternative option that was not as costly. That's something we could ask the department heads to look at. And then, of course, not bonding for the equipment for the next 3 to 5 years. In some situations, a police fleet, they didn't really get any police vehicles last
Right.
year. You may still need to do it in the 2018 borrowing, but again, is there any goals, is there any chance that we can get some of that into the budget for the following year?
So when must we have this meeting? I mean, we need to get to this.
Yeah, get a
So
handle on it.
is it in July that we must do this? Or, when would you say we should schedule something like this?
I will take any feedback that I have from the department heads.
Department heads?
Right there.
Well, from Public Works perspective, we have been tasked with getting infrastructure projects done.
Yeah, right.
We are moving forward.
So really, the money there, you might be spending more money. We might have to take more away from these guys, because you might have spent
Well,
it all already.
I have been given a
Is that what you're
directive
saying?
to get infrastructure projects completed. So we're out there, we are encumbering funds. Now,
So we better do this quickly before you,
when the bills come due, I need to pay contractors.
right.
Now, one of the things I also want to add, just something to keep in mind. Historically, what Director Ellenbacher's talking about as far as getting your equipment into your budget, that's where our equipment is. I have, under the DPW budget and operations, there is a city equipment usage fund. And in 2018's budget, we took the equipment out of there and we bonded for it.
I remember
In
that.
2019's budget, That was removed from our budget line item, and it's not bonded for. So this year, we are going without entirely. $1.2 million worth of equipment that's necessary for snow plowing, for garbage collection vehicles are $275,000 a piece.
So you're
And
kind of
they don't
saying
come any cheaper.
you had your.
I didn't include it in a bond request because I am counting on getting it back into my budget.
Into your budget. Back to the question, other,
So
Chiefs?
my answer is I need that money yesterday.
right,
And I know the
other chiefs?
Yeah, for us, the big thing is vehicles. You know, once our vehicles reach 100,000 miles, the warranty's gone. They are significantly more prone to breaking down. A police car is driven a lot harder than your family car is. And once they start breaking down, we have a choice of either having our mechanics work overtime on them or sending them over to one of the big dealerships to have them repair there. It just starts becoming more and more inefficient to do that because it costs a lot more money for
Right.
us. So as Diana said, we got 0 cars last year, we got 6 cars, I think, the year before. We need 12 per year to keep on that replacement cycle. We've already expanded our replacement cycle from a 3-year cycle to a 4-year cycle. We went with the SUVs because it's a more rugged car and we think it's gonna last longer. But right now, we're pushing 5 years on many of our vehicles. So they're already blown through the 3 years, through the 4-year, and they're to the 5-year right now, just because we haven't gotten any new ones.
So you'd like it done fairly
As soon as possible would be great.
Chief, other chief?
Just to answer the question about value in vehicles, we just auctioned off 2 ambulances and a fire engine. 2 ambulances and a fire engine, we got $17,000 between the 3. So what happens with our vehicles, our ambulances, they're frontline for 4 to 5 years, depending on where they're at.
Yeah.
Because the ones downtown run harder than the ones out on the outlying areas. And then we roll them into reserve status, which means they get put into frontline use when one breaks down or when we have maintenance, which is an ongoing, all day, every day thing. Same thing with the fire engine. So by the time we get them to auction, they are basically useless.
Okay.
So
That
there's
doesn't give me
there's not
much.
going to be any big amount of money there that's going to be coming from, I don't know about Public Works, but I can tell you from our department, by the time we get done with something, it's more out. And as far as when we need it done, I mean, we schedule our apparatus, our fleet equipment, much like the police, based on use and experience. Our mechanics review every apparatus every single year during their preventive maintenance that they do. And sometimes we'll jockey things down, we'll push things down, sometimes we have to push things up. But what we're talking about here by not filling the request is we're deferring once again. And this problem will just continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So in 5 years, instead of seeing 12 million there, you're gonna see 16 million because we've deferred, we've kept pushing things back. And then you're gonna be looking at us asking for way more money in our maintenance budgets, and you're gonna be facing a lot of basically downtime. In the public safety realm, if the vehicles aren't available, that's just unacceptable to us. And
So when can you guys be ready? Maybe that's a better way.
I'm ready today.
Okay, well, I'm not. So.
Just to put it in perspective,
July.
we have 82 vehicles, 27 of them are already beyond their scheduled replacement. We're just gonna keep on using them as much as we can and cobbling them together as best we can. It's about 1/3 of our vehicles are beyond already their scheduled replacement.
All right, so is there a week in July? I mean, I know you guys should take some vacation time.
Why can't we do the approaching? Why couldn't we do like our next, yeah, 'cause where are we? What would be our
Yes,
next
I just wanted to
weekly
give
meeting?
people enough time.
Yeah, we have the 24th down for,
Oh, yeah, the 25th.
it's 24th or 25th. Supposed to be a meeting for us.
No, the 18th is the council meeting.
Yeah. so
Yeah,
that went
but then
from
they have
And I
a
am
schedule.
in class. But what time of day are we talking about? I mean,
Can we meet?
are we talking about more, starting a little bit earlier than 4:30?
I think in most cases it works for staff.
To start earlier.
Yeah,
Correct.
plus I think I could see it lasting longer.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how do you guys feel about, I mean, it's only 2 weeks away, but
Whatever.
the June 25th?
I think most of the departments have most of their information pulled together. They might be looking for some additional details yet to supply, but they haven't submitted it, and we know what makes up the $9.3 million. I just want to follow up one thing out of the 9.3. 3.9, basically 4 million of that 9.3 is what we've been obligated already. When we talked, Steve has $3.4
talked
million
Steve,
of
okay.
pavement, and we had obligated
So
$570,000 for elevator.
Okay.
He also was able to move forward with the sanitary and storm, but that is what's in the other funding sources line. So to that 9.3, when you say, did we already obligate most of it?
Yes,
We've
that's what I
obligated
wondered.
$3,980,000 of that 9.3.
3,900,000. Could we just kind of round off to 4 million?
Yeah.
4 million.
I would say.
So we got
4 million.
5 to work
Out
with.
of the 5 million left, we are supposed to cut 1.3.
Ooh.
That's a recommendation.
So we'll take some
It could be
talking.
cut
I
with-
want, then definitely input from the department heads, from you guys, rather than us going here,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
choose that.
Yeah.
There,
But,
I'm just gonna add, there was some assumptions, or it seemed like the council wanted more say in how we spent our money, and that's part of the reason why it's been submitted this way. In the past, the previous mayor had much more say in what would come to you as a bonding request. I got the impression that council wanted to have more say in what got bonded, when it got bonded, who took priority, and so that is why it's been brought to you without, I won't say without recommendation, but it's been
makes
unaltered
sense.
and submitted as is.
there were some others that didn't want that, so.
Correct, so that's why it's brought to you and looking for some feedback from you. Do you want more information, or how do you want us to present it? So you've given us, the department heads, some information on additional things that you're looking for from them.
Okay, so how about, I mean, is the last week in June convenient, at least for the three?
Not
of
for
you?
the police, that is unfortunately an NFL weekend, we're sending 2 of our commanders down to, NFL is sending them
Okay.
down to that, and I'll be out of town myself, so
Okay,
that's
so
kind
we
of
can't
like
do
I
that.
can find a sub that,
What about if we back it up?
Next week, yeah, like next Thursday.
Back it up to, I'll be out of town on that all day, and I'll be out of town all day. So the 18th is council, but, Jesus, Monday? But we already have, don't we already have meetings on Monday?
Yep.
I-
Well, the council's on the 18th, there probably are not too many meetings on the 17th.
They're done 11.
Say that again?
I
What?
said because council's on the 18th, there probably aren't too many committee meetings on the 17th.
Oh, there are.
Okay,
Yeah, I know we have Board of Appeals,
okay,
and we have traffic.
okay, I see.
But we still
We could meet
could do
early,
it. We-
Tuesday, the day of council.
What about the day of council? Because you know everybody's gonna be around anyway. What if we did?
3.
Well, that's not early. Is that 3 early enough?
Can you just make sure that we take a break at 5:30 or so people have a chance to get ready for the 6 o'clock meeting?
How do you guys feel about that? No?
I'm gone out of town, but I'll have my best guys
On,
there.
on the 18th, on the next council
Yes,
meeting?
ma'am.
Oh,
Well, I want the chief to be here.
Well, that's okay.
Okay, well,
well,
Good guys
chief,
here.
are you, good?
Okay.
I mean, the 4th of July week's.
Highly qualified people to be here.
If he's fine
Devin
with
Hall.
it.
If you're fine with it.
Sooner rather than later.
yeah, yeah, as soon as we.
Okay.
Well, they've been in the discussions with us as we build up to this, so they're up to speed on it.
Are you gonna be gone on the day of council too?
I am, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's.
I'll be here on the night, I'll be here on the 17th, which is Monday. I'm leaving that Monday morning of the 18th.
What about that Monday?
Well, park moved
3:30.
theirs to tonight from
I can do
Wednesday,
3:30.
so.
I could do
Okay.
3:30 Monday. I could do 3:30 Monday the 17th.
3:30 on the.
But but you're leaving Monday evening, you said?
Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning? Do you want us to do that? We don't have to, chief.
I'm happy to do it
I'm not
whenever,
trying to
and I'm
pressure
happy
you.
to have my guys do it. I'm
If
quite
your guys can
confident
do
that
it, let's keep it
they
on
can certainly
Tuesday.
do it.
If his guys can do it, let's put it on Tuesday. All right. So we're saying 3 o'clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday. And we need to let the other alders know. That's another reason I wanted it out a little bit further, because I want them to know, but
So they can maybe be.
yeah, because they're gonna probably want to be here.
People are
So it's kind of like the bonding, I don't know what we're gonna call it, but elimination meeting? Don't know.
So then we will actually have the June 18th
Budgeting.
meeting, then we would also have the July 9th meeting, so we'd actually have 2 additional finance meetings before you would get then to the following council on the 16th. So that would give us a chance to have some review, and then we could discuss it again at the following finance meeting
We
if you
could-
wanted.
Discuss it on the 9th at finance.
Okay, so we can.
Yep, and then
Okay,
prepare
so if
to set
anybody
something.
couldn't make it, or if there's any questions left over, Chief, will you be back by the 9th?
Yes, ma'am.
Then we could make final decisions
Okay.
and bring it to council on the 16th. I think I think that's a good plan.
So we're still gonna have the
Let's start
18th?
16th again.
Well, the
We'll have
18th.
the 18th, and then we'll have the 9th.
All right.
Okay.
And then moving forward, Diane, we won't be in this kind of position because we'll be doing the bonding with the budget for the next year.
Correct. Correct. That is a goal then, to be looking at
Okay.
that, and simultaneously, that is a big portion of your budget then, during the budget. If it can't go in your budget, then it should go into bonding, then you've already basically approved that. Because that borrowing for 20 has a financial impact on your 20 budget. So right now, we take a guess on how much we're gonna borrow the following year, and I take a guess on how much my additional debt service is gonna be.
Right,
So it's a guess also, so this would
Right.
help me for budgeting for debt also.
that'd be good.
Right, because, and on the positive side, we could actually find savings, more that we could take on as part of the regular budget, and it would alleviate maybe some of this cutting in the bonding, so I think we have a better grasp.
I'm wondering, so I ran a copy of it, but God, it's just all super small prints and everything. Is there any way to get a more readable?
I have it just on 8.5 by 11, I have it
Yeah.
reprinted, but
Maybe it turned out better. Mine just didn't turn out real well from the printer downstairs. It's just really hard to read
okay, I can give you a copy of this and see if that's better.
because it's smushed. It's a little bit-
So what do you
All right.
need us to do for action today?
Recommendation, I would guess, to come back with additional details and information from the, additional information, as stated earlier by Alder Galvin, and then that we should schedule an additional meeting on June 18th at 3 p.m.
Does that sound like a good motion for you to make?
Yes, I'll make that
Made
motion.
by Alder, Ms. Dex, is there a second?
And I guess I would just encourage all the department heads to have a plan,
1 second.
you know, a good plan of how you can try and make, if we have to, how we can make these cuts and how we can make it best so it hurts as little as possible.
Okay.
I mean, we wish there was the money
Yeah.
to give everybody what they need plus some.
We do.
But it's
Kathy
a,
seconded that motion. Okay. Do you guys, any more discussion on this? Anything from the directors, chiefs?
As far as Public Works is concerned, the only money that we're asking for under bonding is for capital programs, so if you guys want to do less capital programs, that's where our cuts are going to come from.
That's what we'll have to see. We'll have to look at that. And we hope we don't. Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Here's something on GURP. Consideration with possible action on licensing the Green Bay Electronics Record Program, GURP, to Brown County. Do we need to go into closed session for this?
I think I would ask Commander Abel to give you a little bit of an update on what this item is, and then decide whether or not that, if you want to go into closed session at that
I
point.
look at mine.
Okay, so we developed our own records management system starting back in 2006. In 2000, let me go back to 2003. We started, or attempted to do a countywide records management system, and it failed miserably. 2006, we developed our own. It's known as GURP in the county. The pieces are in place right now that'll allow us to have the rest of the county join us.
Okay.
We want to enter discussions with the county. They have approached us. Enter discussions with them to provide it countywide.
And that would bring in some money to the...
It would bring in potentially some revenue, yes, but that's what the closed session would be for, to discuss what those options would be and what we would do with it.
And so that would be a recommendation then to go into closed session.
If you want to discuss the money aspect of it, I think that would be appropriate.
Yes.
I think
So-
we should.
Would you like,
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session.
Second.
and should I read the words? The committee may convene closed session pursuant to section 19.85 Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The committee may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.852 Wisconsin statutes to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda. All those in favor of going to closed session?
Get the law if you want.
Yep.
Opposed?
Thank
Motion carries
Thank you.
unanimously.
Yep. We're gonna have Rick and Mike also.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to go back into open session.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're back in open session. At this time, I would entertain a motion for staff to proceed as directed in closed session. So
Yep,
moved.
I'll make that.
So moved by Alder
Yep.
Galvin, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next item, it's the report of the Claims Committee. I don't have any questions. Does anyone have any questions on?
I did not have any questions
No?
or concerns.
We want to receive and place on
I'll
file.
make a motion to receive and place on file.
All right. A motion by Alder
Second.
Galvin to receive, place on file, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Then we are at informational. The next Finance Committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, July 9th at 4:30 PM.
No, with the exception, we're gonna now have
Yeah, 3.
we're gonna have a June 18th meeting
Yes, the next Finance Committee will be held on June 18th
at
at
3
3
p.m.
PM. Okay. Thank you for saying that. And then the contingency fund is at 96,042, but not really, right?
Correct, we've
Yeah.
obligated dollars for legal expenses, but have not seen any expenses actually be paid out
Okay.
yet, and that is why it is still at 96.
All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right.